Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about when you first got your start playing, because you were actually a theater major. This is a fascinating story, I think. So you were in college studying theater, but you were playing guitar, and then Delaney and Bonnie came to town with their band. Would you mind telling us that story about how that all kind of happened, and then you ended up moving out to LA?
First of all, I was a theater major because all my friends were in that program, and it was the easiest thing you could do to waste time in college while you're out off playing your guitar every other free hour of the day.
It's kind of like the art school with the English guys. The English guys all went to art school, but they all wanted to just play music.
Yeah. It was fun. I mean, I did get a lot out of it that I have tried to apply to performing music. But it was the summer of 1970, and the spring of 1970, I was in English class with a young lady I was friendly with, and she said, "Have you heard of this group that Eric Clapton's playing with?" I said, "What group? You mean Blind Faith?" She said, "No, Delaney and Bonnie and Friends." I said, "No." She said, "I just saw them at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia, and it was amazing. You're going to love this." So I went out and found the record, and she was right. I loved that record. It was a live record. Dave Mason was on it, uncredited, I think. And George Harrison certainly was uncredited, but also on it. And here was all these luminaries playing with this Delaney and Bonnie. Who were they,
Right.
And so I then found their previous record called the original Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. So these people were really tapped into some great stuff. They had great guitar playing. They covered blues, gospel, R&B. It was just exactly a kind of a route that I felt that I could follow musically. And in fact, along with the original Fleetwood Mac, those two groups were probably foremost in my mind as far as direction that I thought I could go. So I kept going out and getting backstage and meeting them and playing them some music I had recorded and, just hanging out. They were nice enough to let me come back. After doing that several times, they asked me one night, "Do you have your guitar with you?" And I said, "Of course I did." I was in the trunk of my car, invited me to sit in with them, which I did. And I knew all their music note for note, of course, having listened to all this stuff. And they sort of turned around like, "Who is this kid?" And it was a magic moment and kind of brought the house down. And after the show, they said, "Well, are you going to follow us up and try to get into business?" I said, that's what I want to do. And they said, "Come to LA, we'll help you get started." And after school in June, I went out there and looked them up. And a couple of weeks later, they were going on tour and said, "Do you want to go on tour with us?" And I did.
You said yes.
That was my official first gig and foray into the music business.
And I also, I love that story. And I also love the story of your first recording session. Would you mind sharing that story with us?
Well, I had two first recording sessions. One was with Todd Rundgren in New York City. That was a friend of mine, Rick Vito, and I. We were writing songs and performing as a duo. And Rick was a friend of Todd's from the neighborhood.
Right.
We both grew up in. And we went up to the Electric Ladyland studio. It was Jimi Hendrix studio. That was our first session, and recorded a few things. And one of the songs, we didn't get a record deal, but one of the songs got on a James Cotton record. James Cotton being one of our heroes at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the first real session, professional session I did. My first session with Delaney and Bonnie was at Ike Turner's studio in LA. It was an all-night session with just me and Delaney playing a slide and acoustic guitar, doing blues and that kind of stuff that they would also do.
I guess I'm thinking about your the Bobby Whitlock session.
Oh, that session. That was my third session, I think.
Okay.
That was an incredible session. Do you want to hear that story?
Yes, please. That's a good one.
after leaving Delaney and Bonnie, which happened after a couple months of working with them because economic reasons, whatever. I got a call from Bobby, and he said, I've heard some of your recordings that Bonnie played me, and I really like what you're doing, and I'm going to go into the studio and such a day and record a demo, and I'd really like you to be a part of it. I said, wow, I'd love to do that. So I went to this recording studio. I'd met Bobby in the meantime, and went to the studio, and the drummer was Jim Keltner, who had been on one of those Delaney and Bonnie records, incredible drummer. And the bass player was another luminary. Of course, when called on to produce names, I sometimes forget. But anyway, we did this song. It was a real raucous rock and roll song, and there was big long passages where I got to, play extensively and do all this playing, blah blah blah. The producer on the session was Jimmy Miller. Right. And Jimmy Miller also was producing a group that you may know of called the Rolling Stones.
Right.
So we get done a track of this song, and it's a pretty wild, raucous, great take of this song. And we're listening back, and as we're listening, the door to the studio opens. Is everybody still with me here?
Yes, yeah, sorry.
Okay. The door opens, and in walk Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. So my idols. And I was so green and so young. I was just turned 21, I think. And they came in, and everybody's listening back, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what do they think? They're listening to me. Oh, I was freaking out. To the end of the song comes to a close. Keith Richards goes, who's the guitar player? And I didn't know what to say. I couldn't speak. I just kind of feebly rose my hand, and I said, I am, sir. I don't think I said sir, but I felt like that. And he said, nice work, mate, nice work. And it was the vindication to this day of my life that my idols, the guy I learned from,
right,
heard my playing and singled me out and gave me a compliment. So that was my first kind of experience on that level.
Well, then the follow-up to the story is that that was like the demo session, but when you were actually recording it, it's like the whole thing happened over again, right?
Yes. 9 months later, we're in a different studio, same producer, same song, finished the track, we're listening back, door opens again, same two guys come in, same thing. Who's the guitar player? And Bobby Whitlock says, you've known that guy for 9 months. That's the same thing you said before. It's Rick over there. So, yeah, that kind of thing is just,
That's stuff for your book, Rick. When you need to write a book with these anecdotes.
I'm working on that book, yeah.